I gave my family $520,000 over 8 years, and behind my back, they called me their cash cow. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Claire Hartley. For years, I believed family meant giving everything you could, even if it meant losing yourself. I worked as a nurse, and not just during regular hours. I picked up extra shifts, covered nights, weekends, and holidays. While others rested, I stayed at the hospital, pushing myself to the edge. The reason? My family. They told me over and over that they couldn't survive without me. My parents reminded me that bills were piling up and groceries were too expensive. My younger brother Dean said he couldn't make rent without my help. My sister Marla often had sudden health issues and medical bills that she insisted were urgent. It didn't feel like I had a choice. Whenever I hesitated, guilt wrapped itself around me. I thought, this is my duty. This is what a good daughter and sister does. So, every paycheck I brought home was already spoken for. Rent for Dean. Hospital visits for Marla. Utility payments and food money for Mom and Dad. I kept almost nothing for myself. My friends would plan vacations, but I'd always say no. I'd dream about opening my own small clinic someday, a place where I could run things the way I believed was best. But it always stayed a dream. The money I earned went straight back into the hands of the people I loved. At first, it didn't feel like a burden. I thought I was building something for all of us. I imagined one day they would look back and thank me. Maybe we'd be closer because of the sacrifices I made. But as the years passed, I noticed something. No one ever said thank you. No one ever asked how I was doing, or if I was tired from all the double shifts. It was as if the help I gave wasn't help at all. It was expected. Still, I pushed forward, telling myself it was worth it. I told myself that family comes first, and one day I would have time for me. I told myself that one day they would see how much I gave up. But deep down, a small voice kept asking, do they really love me, or do they just love what I can give them? That thought haunted me late at night after long shifts. I would come home, kick off my shoes, and stare at the empty apartment I could barely afford. I would open my phone and look at pictures of dream vacations or clinics other nurses started. But then I'd think about Dean's rent, Marla's bills, my parents' groceries. I'd sigh, put my phone down, and remind myself they need me. I can't stop now. I had no idea that the truth was darker than I imagined. All this time, while I was breaking myself to keep them afloat, they didn't see me as family at all. They saw me as a bank, and the word they used for me would change everything. Claire's life became a steady routine of giving. Every month, she paid Dean's rent so he could keep his small apartment. Whenever Marla had another hospital bill, Claire was the one who covered it, no questions asked. For her parents, she made sure the lights stayed on and the fridge stayed full. She was the silent safety net for everyone, and they leaned on her without hesitation. Her days all looked the same. She worked long hours, came home exhausted, and handed over the money. There was no pause, no moment to think about herself. Week after week, the cycle continued, and it seemed like the only thing keeping the family together was the paycheck she provided. While others her age traveled, went on dates, or chased new opportunities, Claire kept telling herself those things could wait. She turned down invitations and ignored her own hopes. The thought of starting her own clinic felt further away with each passing year, but she accepted it because she believed her family's needs were more urgent. Still, something was missing. No one offered gratitude. There were no words of kindness, no recognition of how much she gave up. Her sacrifices were invisible, treated as if they were simply her responsibility. And even though she kept going, the silence from her family spoke louder than any thank you ever could. It was a warm afternoon when Claire joined a family barbecue, one of the few gatherings where she allowed herself to relax. She moved between conversations, carrying plates and smiling as though everything was normal. But then, while passing near the patio, she caught her aunt's voice. Her aunt spoke kindly, saying how remarkable it was that Claire gave so much of herself, how rare it was to see someone so selfless. For a second, Claire's heart swelled at the thought of being noticed. But that feeling vanished the moment her mother replied. With a dismissive laugh, she said, "Claire's our little cash cow. She doesn't know how to say no." The words landed like a stone in Claire's chest. She froze, hidden by the doorway, gripping the edge of the wall as though it could steady her. Her aunt went quiet, the kind of silence that carried unease. Claire stayed still, her breath caught, pretending she hadn't heard anything. When her mother walked back toward the grill, Smiling and chatting as if nothing had happened, Claire forced herself to step outside, face calm, though her insides churned. All through the meal, she kept replaying that sentence. Cash cow. Not daughter, not sister, just a resource. She laughed when others laughed, passed the dishes, and made polite conversation, but her mind was elsewhere. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it gnawed at her quietly. Had they ever appreciated her sacrifices, or was she nothing more than the steady stream of money they expected? That evening, after everyone left, Claire sat alone, staring at her hands. For the first time, she wondered if the love she believed in was only an illusion. Years later, everything shifted in a way Claire never expected. The hospital where she worked announced deep budget cuts, and her position was among the ones eliminated. After years of pouring herself into endless shifts, she walked out with a box of her belongings and the heavy weight of uncertainty. Fear mixed with exhaustion, but part of her believed her family would understand. She imagined comfort, maybe even encouragement, as she looked for a new start. Instead, the reaction was the opposite. When she explained she no longer had a paycheck, their faces hardened. There was no sympathy, only anger. Her father muttered about bills piling up. Her mother frowned as if she had failed them, and then Dean erupted. He slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "What are we supposed to do now? You ruined everything." His words cut deeper than losing the job itself. Claire stood frozen, stunned that her hardship was treated like an inconvenience to them. She expected a hug, maybe reassurance, but all she received were demands. They weren't worried about her sleepless nights or how she would rebuild. Their only concern was that the steady stream of money had dried up. In that moment, clarity pierced through the years of sacrifice. She wasn't their daughter or sister in their eyes. She was the provider, the one expected to keep them afloat no matter what. Losing her job didn't just take away her income. It stripped away the illusion that she had been valued for more than the dollars she handed over. The realization sank in like ice. To them, she was never truly family. She had only ever been the bank. Claire turned to the only person she trusted outside her immediate family, her cousin Lena. Sitting across from her in a quiet cafe, Claire finally let the weight of everything spill out. She spoke of exhaustion, of the anger she faced after losing her job, and of the constant feeling that she was only useful for money. Lena listened closely, her expression tight with something more than sympathy. After a pause, Lena pulled out her phone. She hesitated, then said, "You need to see this." With a few taps, she opened a group chat Claire had never been part of. Claire leaned in, and the words on the screen made her stomach twist. There were messages from her own family, cruel and casual, as if mocking her was entertainment. One line read, "She thinks she's doing charity work, but really she's just our piggy bank." Another followed, "As long as she keeps paying, let her believe whatever she wants." Claire's breath caught in her throat. The laughter from those messages was louder than if they'd been spoken aloud. Her chest tightened as each sentence confirmed her worst fear. They hadn't just taken her for granted, they ridiculed her for it. Every long night on the hospital floor, every holiday spent working instead of resting, every dream postponed so they could have what they wanted, it all replayed in her mind like a cruel joke. What she once called love now looked like a transaction, and what she thought was duty now felt like exploitation. She closed her eyes, fighting back tears. The betrayal burned deeper than anger ever could. Years of devotion, dismissed as nothing more than a joke behind her back. For the first time, she wondered if any part of their bond had been real. Claire walked away from Lena's phone with a storm in her chest, but she didn't let it show. When she saw her family, she smiled as if nothing had changed. She handed over small bits of cash here and there, just enough to keep them from questioning her. On the surface, everything looked the same. Inside, though, she was no longer the same woman. Instead of pouring out every cent, she opened a separate account and began tucking money aside piece by piece. Each deposit felt like reclaiming a part of herself that had been stolen. The amount grew slowly but steadily, and with every dollar saved, her determination hardened. A new clinic eventually offered her a position, and she accepted with conditions she had never dared set before. This time, she made clear limits. Her paycheck was hers first. Bills, savings, and her own needs came before anyone else's demands. She gave only what she chose, not what was pulled from her by guilt. Her family noticed no shift. They still asked, still assumed, and she gave just enough to keep suspicion away. What they didn't know was that every polite nod, every forced smile, was part of a plan. Claire was preparing, not just to step away from them, but to show them she was no longer the person they thought they controlled. Her savings grew into more than numbers. They became a symbol of freedom, a foundation for a life beyond their reach. And beneath that freedom, another feeling simmered, an urge to make them face the truth of what they had done to her. Not yet, she thought, but soon. Late one evening, Claire's phone buzzed with Marla's name flashing across the screen. Her sister's voice shook as she claimed she was drowning in medical debt, pleading for $20,000 to make it disappear. The urgency in her tone pressed on Claire's heart, and for a moment she almost gave in out of habit. But hesitation lingered this time. Something felt off. After the call ended, Claire reached out to Lena, hoping for clarity. Lena didn't hesitate. She pulled up Marla's social media updates and messages she had seen through mutual friends. Instead of bills or treatments, there were glossy photos of designer handbags, weekends in luxury hotels, and snapshots of cocktails on sandy beaches. The truth hit Claire like a sharp blade. While she had been breaking her back to provide, Marla had been living lavishly, disguising indulgence as suffering. It wasn't just selfish, it was deception, dressed up as desperation. Claire's pulse quickened, but she did not explode. The fury inside her hardened into calm resolve. She could see clearly now. Every dollar handed over was fuel for their lies, and every excuse they gave was another chain around her. That night, staring at the evidence, she made her decision. There would be no more rescues, no more sacrifices, no more playing the part they wrote for her. The cycle they depended on was ending, and she would be the one to end it. Claire called for a family meeting, her voice steady but cold. They gathered around the dining table, expecting another handout, but what they received was nothing they had imagined. She opened a folder and spread papers across the surface. Pay stubs, transfers, receipts. Line by line, she revealed the total she had poured into them over the years. The number sat heavy in the air, $520,000. The room went silent, eyes darting from the pages to her face. Before they could speak, she continued. She described the cruel messages she had seen, the names they had used for her, the mockery that reduced her to nothing more than a source of cash. Then, she turned her attention to Marla, exposing the truth behind the plea for medical debt. The handbags, the trips, the lies, all laid bare. Her words sliced through the air like glass shattering. She expected shame, maybe even regret. Instead, her father leaned back in his chair, his voice hard and dismissive. You owe us. You wouldn't be where you are without us. The sentence hit harder than all the years of silence. Any illusion that love still lingered vanished in that moment. Claire stared at the faces around her, once familiar, now strangers who saw her as nothing more than a means to an end. Something inside her snapped, not with rage, but with finality. The bond she thought unbreakable was gone, and she knew she would never see them the same way again. Claire wasted no time after that night. She severed every tie that chained her to their demands. No more transfers, no more late-night rescues, no more excuses. With Lena's support, she packed her belongings and stepped into a new apartment that was hers alone. The space felt different, quiet, uncluttered, free of expectations. Her phone rang constantly in the beginning, but she ignored every call. When the messages turned bitter, she blocked the numbers. Finally, she changed her phone altogether, cutting off the last direct line they had to her. For the first time in years, the silence brought peace instead of guilt. Life began to settle into a new rhythm at the clinic where she now worked. She poured herself into caring for patients, but this time she did it on her own terms. Weeks passed before her past came crashing into her present. Her family appeared in the lobby, their voices sharp, demanding what they believed belonged to them. Claire met them with steady eyes. She didn't raise her voice, didn't flinch. She simply said, "The bank is closed. You had your chance. I'm done being your cow." The words hung in the air, final and immovable. When they refused to leave, security stepped in, guiding them out of the building. Claire stood tall, watching without a flicker of doubt. As the doors closed behind them, a weight lifted from her chest. For the first time, she breathed freely, knowing they no longer had control over her. She was finally her own. Claire's new life unfolded slowly, but with purpose. Without the constant drain of endless demands, she finally had the chance to focus on herself. Each paycheck went into her own future, not into filling someone else's pockets. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe, to dream, to live. She began taking trips she had always postponed, walking along ocean shores, exploring quiet towns, tasting freedom in places she had only seen in photos before. Every journey reminded her of how much she had given up, but also how much she could still build. The guilt that once haunted her steps faded, replaced with pride in reclaiming her own story. Her greatest accomplishment came when she signed the papers to open a clinic of her own. The doors stood as a symbol of resilience, built not on sacrifice for others, but on her strength and determination. Patients walked in and found someone who cared deeply, someone who knew what it meant to give without losing herself. Through it all, Claire carried a lesson carved from pain. Family is not measured by blood alone. True family shows respect, gratitude, and love that does not come with conditions. She learned that protecting her own worth was not selfish. It was survival. Her journey was not easy, but it was hers, and it brought her the freedom she had been denied for so long. And as she looked forward, she knew she would never again allow herself to be reduced to a role she did not choose. If you believe no one should be treated like a cash cow, subscribe to the channel and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Hey besties, thanks for staying with me through this story. Imagine giving over $500,000 to your family, only to be mocked as their cash cow. That betrayal cut deep, but it pushed Claire to reclaim her life, open her own clinic, and finally find freedom. If this touched you, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you next time.